here's an important question that I think a lot of authors might not know about. Audible, or ACX, is the biggest audio producer, I guess, to indie authors at the moment because of the royalty-based structure they have. But if an author can pay per finished hour, what other companies are there other than ACX that can help with the distribution and so forth?
Totally. And again, just remember, this is all my perspective. There will be people who will have a very different opinion than me because of their involvement and history and experience in the industry. So I just want to make sure that I'm not like the ultimate authority, right? So to be honest, right now, the distribution that you get through ACX is really, really good. There are other smaller distributors, and distribution is changing and shifting more and more. So there's other companies that do distribution and other independent people that do distribution. And as I mentioned before, making sure that when you're writing your book, you are saving up as the author so that you can pay for a good per finished hour rate, which again includes the editor, my pension and health requirements, and all of that back end that I'm doing, all of our communication, all of it happens with per finished hour. So just make sure you're saving the money so that you can make sure your book goes to audio, because boy, audio just cannot grow more per year, really. And there's other ways, as I mentioned earlier, you can do royalty share plus, which is some money for my per finished hour, and then a smaller royalty share going forward, or pure royalty share going forward. And just, again, making sure that you have something to share. And sometimes making sure, even in the whole engagement process, either per finished hour or otherwise, that you're aware that there are some narrators who have huge Instagram and Twitter followings and all of that. And that's part of what they bring to the table and their performance. And then there's others that are amazing audiobook narrators who don't have that, but they have listener following, right? So they've done a ton of books. People are looking to see if they are the narrator on that book. So it might not be on socials, but it might be somewhere else. So just remembering that just because someone's prevalent in one aspect might not mean they have a listener following, and vice versa. And both have pluses and minuses, right? Also, there are a ton of independent companies popping up. Sometimes they're narrators like myself who they got too much work and they were able to start to hire out to friends, or they just wanted to employ friends and take on more of that load of producing. And a great resource for that is the Independent Audiobook Awards. And they list a bunch of indie publishers. Some of them are just one actor who's made themselves a business. Some of them are actually bigger ones. And a few that I really love that I just want to plug because they're female owned are Lyric Audio and Blunder Woman Productions. And there are tons of others. So both of them, I know both have kind of lead actors that started them, but they actually hire out quite a bit. And they're wonderful women in the industry. So do your research is another big element. See who owns the company, see how many books they themselves have done, for how long. Have they worked for major publishers? So like Simon & Schuster, Hachette, Macmillan, Penguin Random House Canada, or Penguin Random House. And that's going to give you an idea of just like other people kind of vetting them. That being said, there's always an exception to the rules. Sometimes people are newer to this, especially if they've got a theater background, who might be just fantastic, or they've spent tons of time coaching and they're just ready. So just know that there is going to be an exception to the rule. However, you can also look and see, has that narrator only worked for ACX, or have they worked for ACX and major publishers? And as I mentioned before, do they have a good business savvy on the social media? Or maybe they have just a huge listener following because they've done a ton of books and for major publishers and been kicking around for a long time. And that might mean they have a large listener base, but actually not a lot of social media. And it's important to take all of those things into consideration. There isn't an exact formula. You just kind of, these are different, it's more information in as the author for when you're hiring. And at the end of the day, it is the performance that counts. It really is. And are they nice? Do they have good communication? because that just makes everybody's life easier in our weird and wonky world that continues to get weirder and wonkier. And of course, all the major publishers do audiobooks. They're excellent to work with. I love working with major pubs. It's how I do most of my work, although I do also love working one-on-one with authors. And so it just depends how you want your book to get out there. Sometimes they have a huge pull and they're going to put you right at the front. Sometimes they're going to put you way back on their backlist and it's going to feel like you don't have as much support. So every kind of situation is going to be different. And there's mid-sized companies like Blackstone, Podium, although they're getting bigger and bigger as well. Blackstone, I know, does distribution as well. And so there's lots of kind of different angles to come at this with, not just ACX, but individual engagement and then working through publishing houses as well.
Loved how you left no stone unturned. Why should authors get their books and audios from a narrator's point of view and also from the reader's point of view? I'm sure you as a narrator have your own fans.
Our world is changing. You know, audio is everything. When you're writing a book, you have to know that you've got to get it in audio these days. In our busy, crazy, busy life, in this industry is growing at like 25% every year. And a lot of the time we don't have time to sit down and read a paperback anymore. And so an audiobook is what we do when we work out, when we are gardening, when we're doing our dishes. And so it's got to go into audio. And as also things change in the technical world, just know I believe deeply that there is no AI voice in the world that can do what a human being can do for emotional nuance and characterization and accents and everything. And I believe that's never going to change. And I think that art is about being human. And so I think that it needs to have human touch. I always say to my students, actually, because I do a lot of coaching as well, that remember, you know, if you were lucky enough to have a caregiver when you were younger read to you when you went to bed, you were usually at this beautiful place between waking and sleeping, and it's kind of vulnerable and sweet. And it's an important first foray into understanding humanity, understanding that we all have different stories and that we're experiencing them as humans, and that the more that we learn other people's story, the greater empathy we have and the greater the world is, the greater patience we have, the greater caring that we have if we listen and really empathize with story. And stories are really fundamentally how we know ourselves and question ourselves and hopefully grow. In Hamlet, he says, hold as twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of time, his form and pressure. I think that really sums it up. Good old Shakespeare. Always Shakespeare for the win.
I agree. I keep on seeing that ad on social media that they actually try to promote AI voices for easy and cheap narration projects. I don't know if you saw it traveling around, but totally agree with you that no AI is going to be able to replace the real deal, put in the emotion that narrators put in. In other words, there are no shortcuts with anything in this industry. Tell us something as a narrator that will always stay with you. It could be anything that you experience while narrating a book, or something funny, maybe reading a line wrong or misunderstood a sentence, as I'm sure that happens. And what was the outcome of it? What did you do?
I think one of the big ones for me are the moments when the story brings me to tears. You know, inevitably my job is I've got to read the book. And if I have tears and snot running down my face and can barely speak because I'm overcome with emotion, I have to take a moment and it happens because I'm right inside the story. I'm living moment to moment what that character is living, what those people are living. And sometimes it's overcoming to me, maybe because of the similarity to my own stories. Sometimes it becomes overwhelming just because I'm so inside of the given circumstances of that story. And it's really just a big thing for me that I'm going through. And so it happens, and then I have to take a break and then come back to it, settle my heart, keep some of the emotion, but keep moving forward.
You made me cry with Lucian's part in Thunderlight when you narrated his death. And you do put in emotion so well. I absolutely love that part, even though it makes me want to cry. And my reviews on the Draconian series are just blowing me away. I wouldn't have gotten those without you putting in everything in the audios, and think it's important for narrators to love the book as much as the authors do. Agree. Take us through the narration process or production process when it comes to narrating an audiobook, so that authors can know what goes into an audio. So when you get the book, what are the first steps you do? And take us through the entire process until it's done.
Yeah, so I mentioned a decent amount of it earlier. So it's preparing the manuscript, sometimes a lot with characters, languages, accents, research for pronunciations. And all of this often includes, almost always includes back and forth with the author or producer about characters and pronunciation. Narrating, which is generally 2-to-1. With a newer narrator, it's going to be 3-to-1, so it's going to take them a little bit longer. And then editing, so I got to send that away to somebody to edit because that's what they're good at. And then the pickups. And then I send it back and they do the mastering of that audio. And then I upload that audio to the author, or if it's ACX, to ACX. And then they have to do a QC on it, so quality control on that audio as well.
I remember that part. I had to send you a couple of notes in how to pronounce some of my names and characters. It was so fun to speak to someone about my book. And as an author, I felt that you really wanted to do my book justice, which meant the world to me. Thank you for watching our latest episode. And remember, if you want to subscribe, not miss anything, do so right now. Do not forget to like the button as well. And if you have any questions and any information you would like to put in the comment section, please feel free. We really appreciate everything. Until next time, bye.